I would call myself a hybrid artist. A lot of people say transdisciplinary. Other people say new media. I think probably new media is the one that most kind of captures all of it. So there's so much that inspires me, but I would say the most animating forces in the work, at least currently, are exploring the influences and impacts of systemic power, selfhood, and of embodied consciousness, and using immersive media as the lens and means through which to explore some of those ideas. For years, I worked exclusively in graphite. And the reason why, and I've always loved color. Color is like the juiciest, most exciting thing to me. It excites my brain like nothing else. But the reason I worked in graphite is because I found that over years and years of working with it, to me, the range in tone between the lightest light and the darkest dark and everything in between was as rich as the color wheel. It wasn't until around 2016 that I was really inspired by a book that I'd read, and I started this new series called Surds, where I actually punctured holes in the drawings and put colors in mathematical patterns and put colors behind those holes so that color was sort of integrated into the graphite. And it was kind of a risk because you think that graphite doesn't really play nicely with color, and yet it did. There was some unholy marriage that happened that just worked. Slipstream is actually a type of fiction. It's a genre of fiction. And it refers to the strange familiar, or the familiar strange. So it kind of occupies that uncanny valley where, you'll be reading the story and you're like, no, it's just weird enough. Like, is this really happening? It's very, very powerful. Part of the impulse to create Slipstream was to think about mutating truth. And what is it to create something that is vaguely familiar, but just different enough where you're like, I know I'm relating to it, I don't know why, but I also can't put my finger on what it is. So the opportunity to show in Times Square was a really extraordinary one because, of course, first of all, you have arguably the biggest stage I can think of, with the biggest audience all at once, and the invitation is really to work on 90 screens. I didn't realize that Times Square was in 360. I don't know, I always imagined it as a horseshoe, but it's actually all around you. So there is this way that you can literally, and it's not, again, back to this idea of embodied consciousness and immersive experience. It's not just the visual, but it's the sounds, like someone's playing music over here, or somebody's yelling over here, or somebody's calling to their friend over here, or somebody's drunk over here. But it's like all of this data, all of this input, and then all of a sudden there's the countdown and everybody stops. And then all of a sudden there's just this blast of art, and it's exhilarating. So when I was invited to do it, I thought, well, this is an incredible opportunity. So how do we make use of the space, and how do we make use of the hardware? Like, how do we engage this idea of screens and a culture mediated by screens, where it's just all this, and of course Times Square is this like capitalist, like buy, just like all these exhortations to purchase things. And so how could you subvert that? How could you work with and against that? And it was really important to me that it feel to kind of reflect the buzz, the aliveness, the sort of the living, breathing organism that feels like Times Square through the screens. So I created an animation using in the series that kind of heaves and breathes, and sort of, I wanted it to feel like it was almost like a creature or part of the body that was pushing out and threatening to sort of spill out from the screens. that the screens would dissolve into space, that you would forget that you were looking at screens, and all you would experience is this mystical, kind of confusing, dazzling, shiny, organic, botanical, maybe animal form, kind of sort of waving toward you and kind of heaving again into your space. And then we would all kind of become part of that in the same process. I'm very, very partial to warm colors. I thought, wouldn't it be beautiful to bring in pink? Wouldn't it be beautiful to bring in red? Wouldn't it be beautiful to warm the space and to make it feel like flesh and to make it feel embodied again with something animate, something that isn't, wasn't made by a graphic designer or wasn't, just blaring at you, but something just very sensual. And that was partly where that came from. And just to speak briefly about the process, to take these flat 2D drawings, tear them into these bespoke, very organic, biomorphic sculptures, scan those sculptures with photogrammetry, bring them into 3D software, and then once they were in 3D software, treat them as subjects, like cinematic subjects, and light them and animate them. And of course, once you're using a 3D software, you can kind of play God. Like it's, you can do insane things with color, with reflection. You can put lights, different types of lights that would never, you just defy physics to create these effects, and that's really thrilling. I do feel that color is so connected to emotion, and I tend to love colors that feel bright and contain a lot of outward energy, like red, as I said, like orange, not a big fan of yellow, but like pink, even purple gets into is like more mysterious. This is all subjective, and I realize this is why so it's such an incredible topic, because it's kind of like music, I think. Color to me is like music. Like we just have notes we love. We have certain pitches that ring, really true in our bodies. Mural